Today, we're getting into something that I think it's one of the most misunderstood topics in personal branding. And I know it's going to sound simple, but it is what really is personal branding. And I'm not talking about what people say it is. It's not what gets sold to you in a course or in a LinkedIn post or all of that. But actually, to really understand what it actually is. And most importantly, what it takes to build one that actually does something real for you in your business or in your career. And for us to start answering that question, we have to think of it in a practical way. If someone goes and Googles your name right now, what would they find? And most importantly, whatever they find, what will they think about it? Because here's the thing, your personal brand is not your Instagram grid. I know I said this before, but I really want to double down on it. It's not how many followers you have. It's not how often do you post. It's not how good your content is. To put it in really simple terms, your personal brand is your reputation. It is what people think and feel and say about you to someone else. Or what do they think, feel, and say about you when a topic comes up and it's within the industry that you are known for? What they say about you when you're not in the room. So, to say it in other words, is basically the total impression that someone has of you based on everything that they have ever seen or heard or experienced about you. That is what a personal brand is. And also, to keep it practical, your personal brand, and I'm sure you've heard this before, it's being built whether you are intentional about it or whether you're not. So the only question that really comes up when we know this, it's happening anyway. Somebody's going to have an impression of me whether I am intentional about it or not. The question becomes, are you today trying to shape it, or are you leaving your personal brand in this space that we are in today, where being present on different platforms or being present on social media, since this is a necessity for someone who is career oriented or someone who has a business, are you going to take the realm of shaping it, or are you going to leave it to chance? So if you are going to take control of the narrative and really intentionally building your personal brand, I want you to think of five things that five things that real brands possess and they have and they need. Because when you understand these five pillars, if you want, this is what separates the people who are just like posting online and being present online from the people who are actually building a personal brand that is actually building something for them, building a reputation that is actually going to impact their career growth or impact the growth of their business. So the first point is your positioning. Basically, positioning is the foundation. And for you to know if you have really good positioning, your positioning should answer basic questions like who you are, who do you help, why you and not someone else. That is positioning. It is basically what makes you different from another person in your field. So if you feel like your positioning is not clear, everything else that you do will work against you. If you think that you haven't really nailed your positioning, whatever you do, whether it is online or if it's offline, it will work against you, because you can be posting every single day and that will still confuse people. because they cannot quickly pinpoint what do they understand about you? What do you serve? Who are you? And most people really skip that step. They go straight to the content. And I know that this is one of the biggest points that is debatable online is content versus what has to come before being visible, online or in the world. Because when you decide to skip your positioning, this is the time that months later you sit and you're like, okay, I don't understand what's going on. Why is this not converting into something that is impactful in my life or impactful on my career? So if you've ever asked yourself, what is the best way to identify your positioning? Just think of these places to start. First, try to get specific about who do you help and what exactly is the problem that you solve for the people that you help. And what's really important is that this is where you kind of need to be really specific. It's really specific, not very wide. So you have to clarify one person, and you have to also clarify one outcome that kind of fulfills the promise. The second thing is to ask yourself, what makes my approach different from anyone else in my space? Not better, different. Another thing to ask yourself another thing is to do a quick test. If someone went and read your last 10 posts, would they immediately know what you stand for and who do you serve? Or won't they? Because if the answer is not a very clear yes, then your positioning needs work before you do anything else. The second point to think about is your content. And yes, content does matter. But here's the thing, content is not the whole picture. It's not even the most important part of the picture. Content is important in the fact that this is how you demonstrate your positioning publicly over time. Basically, it is the evidence that you know what you're talking about, you have the substance, and it's also how you stay top of mind. But again, if we go back to the first thing that we talked about, if your content doesn't have a clear positioning underneath all of it, it just becomes noise. You're just adding to the noise that is available online. You're adding to the noise, and it kind of just blends in that noise. So you will be busy, but you're actually going to be building nothing. I want to be clear about something. Content comes in many shapes, not just what you see on social media. So content comes in posts of all shapes and forms and everything. It also comes in the form of white paper, research, email newsletters, Substack, podcasting, public speaking, authoring a book. All of that is content. So when I say content here, what I mean is that it is the bingeable body of work that you put out there. And the question becomes, it's not how much are you creating, but it becomes whether everything that you are building is adding to your reputation, is adding to your image, is adding to your personal brand. The third thing to think about is your network. It is the third pillar. Network is important. And I'm sure you've heard this before. Your network is your net worth. Network is important, not in size as much as it is the quality and the relevance of that network to you. So you might have a very small network, but the quality is really high and it's relevant to your field of expertise or to your industry. So think about it. Who knows you? Who is talking about you? Who would put your name in the room when it needs to be there? Who will mention you when you need to be mentioned in certain conversation that you're not in? Because what happens is that I see a lot of founders who have really large following, but a really thin network. And that means they basically don't have someone who is influential or who is relevant to their own business and who is actively advocating for them when there is a chance to do that. And the reverse is also true, like I said. Some of the most successful people that I know are people who have a very relative small social media presence, but they have extraordinary network. Okay? So the network does the quiet work that your content cannot do, or your content doesn't have a reach to. And building a network is it's a very big topic that definitely merits a whole video on its own, a whole episode on its own, because it needs a really good deep dive. And it's something that I know so many of us really struggle in. So I'm going to keep note of that. And this is something that I will definitely sit and put together and dedicate like a whole video or an episode about this. So I promise, stay tuned on that front. Okay, so let's go to the fourth pillar, or the fourth important thing that you need to understand about personal brand. And that is your publicity and your visibility is important if it's in the right place. This part is what is going to help you to understand that visibility is not a one thing, social media. It is different from posting on your own platform. It is about being seen in spaces where your audience already trusts that space. It already trusts that platform. That could look like guest appearancing on a podcast. It could look like a feature in a publication. It could look like a speaking slot in an event. It could look like a quote that is, you're being quoted in an article published in a magazine or a newsletter or a newspaper. Because this is it. These are trust factor signals that kind of elevate your credibility in such a way that self-publishing, what you put out there, can never do. Okay? Someone else chose you. This is the signal. Someone else chose you. Someone else got you on their platform. And that part of the visibility matters. That part of the quality of the visibility matters. And I'd like to do a quick note about this. Publicity and PR is something that you can actually do yourself as an entrepreneur or as a working professional, especially if you don't have a budget or you're unable to work with a PR agency of a sort. I actually have a very early episode on the podcast about how do you work with media and how do you pitch your own story. It's one of the early episodes. It's episode 2, and it's about how do you approach media and pitch your story. The topic deserves a refresh. That's another note I need to keep, and I think we need to come back to it because publicity and PR is something that is really important, and I think it's not talked enough about. Plus, it's not really talked about in a way where it connects to personal brand. So if you want to hear all about it from an earlier episode, just head to episode 2 of my podcast. You'll find it there. But this is something that definitely needs a refresh because this is something that really adds to what really is a personal brand and what does it really take to build the credibility and build your reputation. And the final thing that I want to talk about is social proof. It's a very important pillar. So social proof is basically, what do others say about you and about working with you? This comes in the form of testimonials, of recommendations. Businesses have it in terms of reviews. So this is basically when people say their experience with working with you, but basically the results that they have got thanks to being a client of yours, or thanks to working with you under a certain department or within the team. So it's basically, what are people saying about you to refer you to someone else? Social proof is a very important pillar, and it is a pillar that builds a personal brand. It is a pillar that builds your reputation. And this particular thing kind of closes the gap between someone who finds you because your content is reaching everywhere, so it's like social media visibility, and between someone who is trusting you enough to take an action on it. So you can have, and this is really important, you can have the best positioning, you can have a great content plan, you can have a really solid network, but you can still lose a sale as a business if there is no clear evidence that you are able to deliver on that promise. Or you can still lose if your value chain is not complete, and people who became a client went through the value chain, but the clients did not experience the promise of your product and service, and therefore did not do a testimonial or a review that you have. They didn't give you the social proof. I hope it explains in really simple and easy terms, but it really explains what a personal brand is. Sometimes I feel that what is out there is not really honest in terms of giving the right or the full picture. This is what it takes to build a reputation with intention, and not just leaving it to luck. You cannot really focus on one particular thing like visibility, content, being, this content machine that is out there, and then expect that you're building a personal brand like exactly what you were told, but somehow your pipeline is empty. Personal brand, it's exactly what it means to have a full system. It's not just content, it's not just social media, it's not just follower time. It's a full system. This is what really reputations happen. And honestly, if you look at it really as a system, it becomes like a flywheel. One leads to the next, and the next amplifies the next one. And then it kind of grows, and then it goes back to the first one, and the first one grows, and then it goes on and on and on, and becomes like a cycle. When all of those 5 elements work together, your reputation kind of builds momentum. And then the momentum is the reason, or the catalyst for the growth, whether the growth is in your career, the growth of your business, the growth on social media, the growth of the following, and so on and so forth. If you're going to get something out of this video, out of this episode, here's what I have to offer. This is an exercise, okay? So look at each of these 5 points, these 5 pillars that I shared with you today, and with honesty, sit and assess where you are strong in and where do you have a gap. Because we're not weak in everything. Usually you have one that is dominant over the others. So sit and really analyze that. Most people I've worked with have 1 or 2 pillars that they're really good at, and then like the other 3 are just about. So the people who are really successful that you admire and you see online, they are the people who build real, lasting, business driving reputations as entrepreneurs, as business owners. They are the ones who work the whole system, not just parts of that system. I hope this was helpful. I'll try to kind of keep unpacking this thing, the elements that kind of really builds your reputation on my platforms during the course of the year. And it's because it is a system, it merits, to go into detail of every single piece of that system to create the flywheel, because it's not just about the surface, the visibility. It's like there's a whole thing that comes with it and around it and everything. And I know that people who are watching today or listening to this episode, God, I think I ate my hair. I know that this is something that it kind of like, oh my God, I need to get another layer on board or anything like that. But actually, I really wanted you to think of it from the information that you get, and once it kind of makes sense to you, when there is logic and it makes sense to you, you'll get to understand where to put your efforts in. You'll get to understand how much to push and where to leverage one thing, and then you'll know how to create that your own flywheel. If this resonated with you, please do share this episode with a founder or a business owner that you know who is really working hard but is not seeing the results that they are expecting or that they really deserve. They might just be missing one of those elements, or maybe two. And also, please don't forget to subscribe. I hope I'll see you next time. Keep making waves.